Hi, everybody. How are you guys? Good? Thank you for coming out. It's not snowing right now. I'm knocking on wood, you know why. So this is our launch party for our rescheduled party for, because we had so much snow when we tried to have it before, for our 4th issue. Our 5th issue will be coming out this summer, and then we'll have another gathering in the fall for our 5th issue. But we want to be able to celebrate the artists and writers that we published in this issue. So thank you again, Susan James and Bayliss Library, for hosting us again. It's always a nice space to have an event like this, and to have it in the community always makes us really happy. So here's what we're going to do for tonight. We're going to do a couple of things. First, we'll have I'll do some introductions and those sorts of things, and then we'll have Jean Monesto, who is a local artist, come up, and she helped us choose the artist for this issue, and this is Eddie James's work, and he's here tonight too, so make sure you get a chance to meet him. So she'll talk a little bit about his work and why she chose it, and some of the things that she loves about it. Then we'll have Jelena Rose, who is our nonfiction editor, read an excerpt from our Pushcart nominee, Laureate May, for the issue. There's Brian. And then Mary McMahon will read a fiction excerpt from the UP native writer Joe Haskey, who just had a book published last year, North Dixie Highway. And then we'll have our contributor, and one of our contributors and Pushcart Prize nominee, Janine Rastel from Marquette, is here with us tonight, and she'll be reading poetry and maybe some flash fiction tonight too, kind of showing us what she's working on. And we also have copies of the journal for purchase out in the lobby, and also you can also buy those on campus at Lake State as well. I think also through the website. Janine will also have copies of her chapbooks here for sale after the reading. We also, in this issue, this is the first issue where we have a Michigan and Ontario feature, so make sure you take a look at it. Janine is in that feature, Keith Taylor, Joe Haskey, Ron Rickey, who else? Why am I drawing a blank? Elizabeth Schmull, and some other writers. So we have a lot of poetry, and I think there's some nonfiction in that section. Lori May is in that section, is that right? And then fiction in that section. So it's nice for us to, I think we're going to do that maybe every 4 or 5 years to celebrate what our writers do in the state and in the UP, because we have some UP writers in there too. So I want to introduce each of our editors, and then our student editors as well, because we have 2 of our new editors with us tonight. I'm Julie Barber. I edit poetry and art. Mary McMahon, she edits fiction, art, and she designs the journal. So the design you see is Mary's work. It's really beautiful. She's a bang-up job every year. And Jelena also edits nonfiction, also is helping us edit art for this upcoming issue as well. Jean Monesto, she is here with us tonight. Come on in. Jean Monesto's here. She'll say words about James's work, but Jean is also a local artist. And I want to read, before I have her come up, and I'll introduce each of our readers with bios. I want to tell you a little bit about Jean's work, and then about Eddie's work. I'm going to speak about Eddie's work. So Jean is a native of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Education from U of M, with a minor in English and Fine Arts and a master's degree from Central Michigan. Her strong interest in the natural world has guided her artistic endeavors, and so I guess you can see exactly why she loves his work so much, because his work, Eddie's work, actually does, it includes the natural world and really embraces the natural world. She has exhibited her work in Sault Ste. Marie's Alberta House Gallery, as well as the EUP Craftsman, the Les Chenaux Arts Council, at the Algoma Fall Festival of the Arts, and in the Kenneth J. Solish Library Arts Gallery. I have a little bit to tell you about Eddie James, and I'm sure he could tell you more about himself when you talk to him after the reading. I had to have a little short bio for him. Eddie James III is a photographer and graphic designer in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And so make sure you stop and talk to him and learn more about him, because sometimes the bios don't tell you everything that you want to know. They probably don't tell you everything that you want to know about Jean. There's probably more to her than just her bio too. So make sure you stop and talk to Eddie before you leave. So come on up, Jean.
Thank you once again. It was a great pleasure to work on this project. I did it last year, and it was just as much fun this year. Hope y'all can hear me. I have a bit of laryngitis, or great UP. I love the theme Earth. I'm going to talk a little bit about that because our Earth is such a magnificent place. I checked on Google Earth, and it's just so beautiful. It can rebound, it can overcome, and it can have balance. I'm reminded of Chief Seattle's famous words that I know that are used every Earth Day, and I want to read what Chief Seattle was taught by his mother. Every part of this earth is sacred to our people. Every pine needle, every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every meadow and humming insect, all are holy in the memory of our people. And his father taught him that I know the sap that courses through the trees, as I know the blood that flows in my veins. We are part of the earth, it is part of us. The perfumed flowers are sisters. The bear, deer, and eagle are our brothers. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. And so when we looked through the artwork pieces, I could feel a sense of these strains within the photographs that we picked of Eddie James III. So we view the land through his camera lens. When I received the pictures online, they were in black and white, so I imagined the flower as a golden jewel weed with an orange skipper on it, but I can see that in color it's that, and that's what we picked for the cover. On page 50 is the old house back there, and it shows that even though houses crumble, the earth does abide. And I heard Jelena tell a friend that it's so representative of a lot of the places that we see in the UP. On page 51, the old fishing spot, that's that dock over there. It reminds me of my dock on a small lake in the UP. It's on Monaco Lake, and when I go down to that dock, I never know what I'm going to see. One day there was a turtle sunning itself on a deadhead. One day, a different day, there was a mother duck and about 10 or 12 of her little ducklings on that same deadhead. And I really love the kingfishers when they come through because they show me how they can fish. That's what I see when I look at that picture. And the chickadees, of course, you just gotta love the chickadees because they stay all winter no matter what. On page 53 of the border crossing, it's the Lake Huron Beach. It reminds me of the poem that Keith Taylor had on page 79, the Allen Creek Green. He begins his poem, somewhere under us, a creek finds its way to the sea. And so I thought that that was quite representative. Page 54 is in the back of the room, Lake Michigan's, I forget what that was called, the image of God or something?
God's shadow, I think.
Yeah, God's shadow. I saw it as a beautiful sunrise or sunset, and it takes me to Jennifer Bird's poem on Lake Superior. She starts it is a cloud wisp and water that gathers distance. So like Chief Seattle, who says every meadow, insect, and the perfumed flowers belong to the earth. So I hope that you will enjoy reading the stories and poems and viewing the art that's in this issue with the theme of Earth.
Thank you, Judy. And also I wanted to just bring to your attention, Eddie had a couple more prints that he brought, and they're on the table over there. And so I'll situate them a little better after the reading so you can see them, or you can just kind of walk around after you look at the house and then kind of move around and look at those. But they're really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. It's really gorgeous. As far as I want to introduce this year's editors to you. We have two of them with us today. I'm going to embarrass them for a minute. They're doing a fantastic job of selecting work for our new issue. We've already accepted quite a few fiction pieces, a few poems already, and I know I'm having a lot of fun working with the editors, and I know Mary is too. So we've got Audrey Hutchison here. Audrey, if you'll stand up and show us who you are. Audrey's here. She's working with Mary as a fiction editor. Jana Tottinen, is that how you say her name? Tottinen. She's not here tonight, but she's also working with Mary on fiction. Brian Hickey is my poetry editor. And they're just doing a great job. And Mary and I talk to each other from time to time about the kind of work we're doing with our students, and we are all having a good time. And that's really what I love about the experience of editing this journal, is that I get to work with students too. That it's not just us editors. It's also us working with the students. We also want to thank our student editors from last year. They can't be here because they either live past the bridge or they're in grad school. So Meredith Cleary was our poetry editor last year. She's getting her master's in social work at University of Toledo right now. And then Stephen Keller, he commutes from downstate. He lives in St. Ignace, I think, and he worked on fiction with her. So in their absence, let's at least give them a little But you can see the kind of work that they helped us do. And our student editors always help us pick the pushcart nominees. Next year, they'll help us pick pushcart nominees and best of the net. So they always help us make a lot of decisions that, we really don't want to make on our own. We really do want to make as a group. And they also read through the slush. They don't just read what we pick out. They read everything. So they are actually getting a lot of experience doing this. We're going to have two faculty editors read. I'm going to have Jelena Rose come up first and read an excerpt from one of the essays that we published.
Good evening. I'm going to read tonight an excerpt from one of our contributors, Lori May, and I'll give you her brief bio. Lori A. May writes across the genres of publications, including The Atlantic, Brevity, and Midwestern Gothic. Her books include Square Feet and The Wire and The Right Crowd, Literary Citizenship, and The Writing Life. She holds an MFA from Wilkes University, and here's the Canadian connection. She teaches in the University of King's College, Halifax Nonfiction MFA program. What a wonderful place to do that. Her writing, she's one of these writers that's just coming alive right now. You can find her work everywhere, and I'd encourage you to find her also on her website at lorimay.com. It's that simple. Lori's let us publish in this volume the essay, The Comfort of Ignorance. And what I like very much about it is that it reflects what happens so often in everyday life. A moment literally falls out of the sky, out of nowhere into our lives, and gives us an opportunity to think about things that maybe we don't want to, but maybe we need to. The essay begins when she and her husband Chris attend the Selfridge Air National Guard base for an air show. So we're going to start a little ways in. While demo teams and parachutes occupied the afternoon air, Chris and I meandered through the tarmac displays. We had conversations with uniforms from various local authorities, an opportunity for Chris to shoot the shit with once removed colleagues. We walked around jets and planes that dwarfed us in size. At one stop where Chris was busy snapping pics of a rescue helicopter, I turned my eye toward the airspace above the greenery. The timing haunts me. There were two stunt vehicles in the air, a small plane and a helicopter. I watched as the chopper hovered alongside the plane. On the wing of the biplane, a stuntman was balancing, reaching his hands out toward the helicopter. The chopper retreated in the wind, then returned again. This time I saw the man reach, but the wind caused the chopper to recede just before the stuntman could grasp on to whatever it is he was reaching for. I saw his body fall. I caught my breath and turned to Chris. Someone just fell out of a plane. I comforted myself by thinking it was part of the show. Surely he had a parachute I couldn't see from the distance. Maybe he was thrown. Maybe it was a stunt. Chris followed my eyes, but by this time there was nothing to see. The plane continued on its path. The helicopter flew in its destined direction. Weird, Chris said. And then with nothing more to look at, he continued on with his photography. As we wafted through dozens of planes and vehicles, sticky-fingered children ran in front of us, behind us, and parents followed with overstuffed red plastic radio flyer wagons. People crossed paths. Planes revved up and took off. Landed. Nothing was still. We wandered alongside a few parked planes, watched a helicopter land, revved down, and saw its pilot exit the vehicle to walk over to an impatient woman, presumably a wife, hug her, and hold on for eternal minutes. "Oh," Chris said, noticing the embrace. "Someone's happy to see somebody." I agreed, and it never dawned on me that this was the pilot of the chopper who was supposed to catch the stuntman. I didn't want to believe that the stuntman didn't have a safety net. It wasn't until hours later, while watching the news and seeing the replay of what I saw earlier in person, that I became aware that the wing walker Todd Green, age 48, fell 200 feet to his death. And I'll let you read the rest. Thank you.
Very good. Hello, everybody. I have the pleasure of, I decided, since we're focusing on Michigan, Ontario, and trying to put a spotlight on those writers with this particular issue, that I wanted to read an excerpt from a writer who's from this area. So I have the pleasure of reading from Joe Haskey's, it's an excerpt from his debut novel, which we also published in Border Crossing. I'll read you his bio really quickly, and then I'll talk about what really stunned me about this particular novel. Joe Haskey is a novelist, poet, and award-winning short story writer. His debut novel, North Dixie Highway, was published in 2013, and if you haven't heard about it and you haven't read it, it's set up here, and it really captures a beautiful sort of way of life that seems to be slipping away from us, so I highly recommend it. His fiction has appeared in journals such as Boulevard, Fiction International, Texas Review, and Pleiades. His poetry and fiction have been featured in French, Romanian, and Canadian publications. He's from Cedarville, I believe, from the EUP. He's a contributing editor for American Book Review and a graduate of Lake State as well. He teaches literature, creative writing, and other courses at South Texas College in McAllen. So the excerpt that I'm going to read from North Dixie Highway, and I have to apologize in advance for my southern accent. I'm originally from Louisiana, so I'm afraid, I keep being afraid to put I'm going to pronounce things not like the characters in the story, but what really drew me in for this story is the voice. This whole novel is written from the point of view of a character who was born up here and grew up here, and it just, the whole book just sort of breathes with life with this area. So the excerpt that I'm going to read, he calls it Bear Hunt, because it's about a bear hunt. And it's basically, the story is, I'm not going to read from the beginning, I'm going to read from a little bit into the middle. But basically, this part of the novel talks about this point at which the character's plan for the weekend is to take care of the bear situation at Grandpa Eddie's hunting cabin. So that's the plot that we're dealing with here. So everybody's out at this hunting cabin dealing with the bear situation, and I'm going to start there. The beast moves downhill through the spruce and birch, splashing through spring holes, leaving twisted cedar branches and sunken tracks behind him. Dad follows the bloodlines on the early patch of snow with his purple flashlight.
There's grace in Dad's movement, the way the light never strays from the red splotches. Jack follows Dad, I follow Jack, Johnny follows me, all of us awkward in our steps. Dad runs, more wolf-like than human. There would be a beagle with us, but our dog Beck ran away from home. Dad says he likes it better this way anyway, man versus bear. The dog would make it too easy. Somewhere behind us is Uncle Henry. He gets along fine for 82, but can't keep pace with the rest of us with the frantic chase. He might lag back now, but he'll be there when we find the bear. Must be close by, Dad says. Snorts are getting louder. Dad holds up his left hand the way he must have done it in the Rangers and comes to a dead stop. Johnny runs into my back and half falls between a rock and a spring. His pellet gun discharges, the ping crackling into the branches of a thick cedar. Quiet, Jack says. He's got his 30-30 at the ready. I've got the 22. Somewhere behind us, up the hill, under the peeling birches, is Henry with a silver-plated .45, the same one he carried for backup in Normandy. Dad's got a Bowie knife in his right hand and a flashlight in his left. Our guns are just in case something goes wrong. Dad started the hunt without a gun and wants to finish it that way. He puts the blade of the Bowie between his teeth and lips and pulls something out of the muck. He turns back toward us and shines the light on gray metal, the knock, the twisted crest, and what's left of the fletching. He broke it off here, says Dad. Might have slowed him. Think you got him good? Jack asks. Dad turns and scopes the opening with his flashlight. Before I notice the lantern behind me, there's a hand on my shoulder. You boys keep them weapons at the ready, says Henry. Don't even think about pulling the trigger unless I tell you to, Dad says. Damn fool, says Henry. Never give nature more odds than she already got. Henry left Tennessee to fight in World War I. It was 1918 and the war was just about over. Henry was 17 but looked older. After he got back from France, he stayed on for more. 15 years enlisted, 15 as an officer. Finally retired after the Battle of the Bulge. Henry's kind of a local hero, even though he's from Tennessee. I saw a letter he wrote to his mother in the town museum. He said, I'm done with Europe. We're full circle back where we started in the First War. There's not much left for me to do here. Let the Marines deal with the Japanese. Since then, he's been a gambler, a businessman, and a dedicated alcoholic, usually all at the same time. He and Grandpa Cleo have been together for 30 years. They live like a married couple, but they're not. Henry's Southern gentleman and scoundrel all rolled into one and has one of the sharpest minds of anybody I know. He's in better shape than most people half his age, thin and muscular, even though he chain smokes and drinks scotch in the morning and rot gut at night. When he gets really trashed, he recites literature from memory. His favorites are Poe, Whitman, and Faulkner. When we read Poe in my English class, I recited some of those poems from memory because I heard Henry do it so many times. Mr. Miller couldn't believe it, thought I was reading from a cheat sheet. Henry can remember whole books and recites better the drunker he gets. A warm breeze blows in from the south when the cracking of the branches and twigs on the ground stops. I see Jack turn in the dark. He comes back to tell me and Johnny to stay quiet. I can't see Dad. Henry's still walking, but doesn't hardly make noise. There's thrashing in front of us and grunting. Jack signals us forward. The next grunt sends a chill through my neck. The bear is close. I didn't go the last time they tracked a bear. Mom said Johnny and me were too small. Part of me wishes I would have stayed back this time too, but it's a rush not knowing where the bear is in the dark. My pistol's at the ready. I'm gonna stop there. You read about what happened in the rest of the bear hunt if you buy Border Crossing, and then you can read the whole book. You can get it at pretty much any local bookstore on Dixie Highway. So, yeah.
And we have our featured writer, our contributor coming up next, Janine Rastel. Janine's also going to be reading, what's the date again? April 16th. April 16th. That'll be coming at Bayliss, so she'll be here again reading more for you. She's going to give you a little taste of what her writing's like tonight, but then she'll be back later in next month. It's not too far away at all. tell you a little bit about her once I get to her bio here. She's probably driving you crazy right now, Janine.
You can read somebody else's.
Janine Rastel lives in Gordon, Michigan, population 2. She's the author of the chapbook and The Yellowed House, which just came out last year from Dancing Girl Press. Her poetry has appeared in several publications, including the Raleigh Review, Prime Number Magazine, Referential Magazine, Heron Tree, and the Michigan Poet. Please join me in welcoming Janine Rastel.
Thank you to all the editors of Border Crossing. And thank you to Bayliss Library for this wonderful venue. I will be back the day after Tax Day. I think it's a wonderful way to celebrate. So I'm going to give you a little taste of my work, and then I'll do all new stuff on April 16th, and we will celebrate having Tax Day behind us. But first, I want to share with you my fellow pushcart nominees in Border Crossing. I was so honored to be a part of this journal with people whose poetry I had admired, like Kathleen Kirk, Keith Taylor, Jennifer Bird, and the wonderful poets that I shared the pushcart nominee with. And I'm first going to read a poem called Etiquette, and that's by Rachel Lyon. So I'm going to read her bio and then read her poem. Rachel Lyon is the author of The Normal Heart and How It Works, winner of the White Eagle Coffee Store Press Poetry Chapbook Award, and finalist for the Black River Chapbook Competition. Her poems have appeared in Crab Orchard Review, Hayden's Ferry Review, Southern Review, and elsewhere. And this is her poem, Etiquette. On the third day of my etiquette training, my grandmother laid her head in her folded hands and cried. I couldn't help it. I was well behaved. I could dust beautifully, 2 fingers in a damp white cloth. But still, I couldn't cut my food without biting my top lip hard and grating my knife against the plate. Under the table, half-chewed chicken filled my napkin, which never draped my pleated skirt like it should. My ankles uncrossed themselves, curved around chair legs to keep my feet from kicking. The 4th day, I tore my hose and fingernails, scratched the backs of my legs until the skin there was red and raw. But she wouldn't let me stop eating that chicken, not until I was exhausted with trying. And now I'm going to read my poem because it's also about families. And so this poem was nominated for the pushcart. It's called Category 4. And Category 4, when I wrote this poem, my oldest son was living 1 block away from the mandatory evacuation of Hurricane Sandy. And my father was in the final stages of Parkinson's. And this poem became sort of my combination of both of those stresses and events at once. Category 4. My last night with Dad, we survived a hurricane. We met at the house on Pritchard Lane. Black-mouthed clouds chewed the neighborhood. Every gust, the joists moaned, the walls quivered. Panes leapt from their frames, showers of see-through daggers. He sat in the yellow kitchen, his fingers worrying the pain lines on his face, the gaps that used to be teeth. He had already guessed no one else would make it back. And I'd like to read now the other Pushcart nominee, Colleen Abel. So I'm going to read her bio and then her poem. Colleen Abel is the author of Housewifery, a chapbook by Dancing Girl Press. A former Diane Middlebrook Poetry Fellow, her work has appeared in numerous venues, including the Southern Review, Mid-American Review, West Branch, The Journal, Cimarron Review, Verse Daily, Cincinnati Review, Plowshares Blog, and elsewhere. She holds a PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and is currently the Joan Beebe Teaching Fellow at Warren Wilson College. So this is the U Alphabet by Colleen Abel. Ask me why all my poems begin somehow with you. The little bulb covered in soil that is mystery down to its roots will not unfurl to either orchard or daisy or sunflower, but to a broad face like your own, generous, open, half smile like a petal curling. I have no answer, just a feeling before the blooming, not in the belly, a bullet leaden and hot. Writing you becomes medicine, morphine, becomes bloodletting, needle drawing you, crimson out of me. Once there was not you. Before you, poems wandered after beauty, asking question after question, fingering rock, shell, stalk, bone of bird, seeing shapes as in Plato's cave, transmuted to shadow. Unimportant ultimately what variables I calculated with, the X of metaphor, the musical curve of Y. The answer doesn't matter, but the blooming, zinnia, violet, aster, circling back to you. So now I'm going to read my other poem, which is also an alphabet poem, in Border Crossing. And I'm a Youper with a green card. I've been here for 6 years, but I figure I get extra years for surviving last winter. So I'm learning to be a Youper, and this is called Learning the Alphabet. Find a rock at Little Presque, sandstone flecked with copper. Put it on your tongue. Sand, grit, bits of bark may slough off. Roll the rock around. Mingled with the limonite, the iron, catch a hint of freighter grease. Taste salmon or lake trout. Ore dust will drift back to your throat with dashes of wintergreen, tangs of cedar or spring moss. Slide the stone across the roof of your mouth. Sip slivers of frost on mittens, wet fur and musk. Curl your tongue. Lick the rock like the first icicle that broke inside your glove. Suck snowflakes light on your tongue's tip and clumps dug from the base of a 10-foot drift. When the rock is thinner than a priest wafer, swallow superior, clear and deep. Open your lips. Start with the alphabet. Say, A. So I'm going to read a couple more poems about my dad, and then I'll do a couple poems from my chapbook. And this first one's called Amnesia, And it starts with a couple lines from a song by Ani DeFranco. Amnesia. They say goldfish have no memory. I guess their lives are much like mine. In the sanatorium, patients play quiet cards, paint still lives, bowls of Bartlett's and dangling grapes. Turned from the sun, they'll keep their colors true. When I was 12, I found my father sleep pacing the living room. All of Malmendy's memories churned in him. If I touched his hand, if I woke him, would we be okay? Electricity shot in the brain, travels in waves like music out to space. Do shocks create visions with every memory they erase? Parkinson's, that thief, stole what was left of him, little pilfers every day. He forgot how to paint, the brush, sometimes a blade, some days a spanner in his hand. He forgot how to swallow. He gave away his children's names. The aides assured us he was happy. He sang as they changed his sheets. Each nursing home holds a gathering space. Love seats off her sweat-dark arms. A jigsaw puzzle waits. Only the edges done. An oil painting, orange chrysanthemums, reflects on aquarium glass. Goldfish glide quietly on and on. So one of the times I was here in the Sioux, I had the pleasure of hearing Nikki Finney, and she talked about how important poetry was in getting down the important people and important memories of your life, to preserve them and to share them and pass them on. And that got me thinking about the things that no longer exist that were part of my childhood, like typewriters and petticoats. And this poem was one of the things that came out of those thoughts. For the collection of things no longer allowed. You coax scattered debris, oak, maple, and willow, over faded grass. You aim every rake swing at your dad, ankle deep in a fiery ditch. Escaped leaves swirl up, hope to reattach. Smoke lifts a gray fist, confronts the sky's solitary cloud. Now a bear, now a pool of melted froth. Your father keeps you a rake length back. Sparks race past his outstretched hand, his feet lost to piles of ash. You exhale into a jar. Wisps press against the lid. You label this jar burning, falls that couldn't last. You shove the memory behind your socks with others that you've hid. So I'm going to read a couple poems from my chapbook, which was published also by Dancing Girl Press, called In the Yellowed House. And I went to an event where people were discussing various goddesses and who they emulated. And this poem is called When Asked About My Inner Goddess. I said, I am the goddess of dirt. I am the loam where seeds burst. Roots, like old men's toes, curl into my side. I am the keeper of secrets, lost keys, skeletons, and phones. I dance like the devil with the wind. I am the place where leaves shred underfoot, where fallen birds die. I hold the ice close. And this next poem is called Release. The surf lays out featherless wings and sanded birch limbs, pieces once bound by ice. Does a wave batter debris into something better? A woman goes to the lake, shorts and t-shirt taunt early May, faded welts dapple winter flash. She carves the sand with a stick, draws two names inside a heart. In an hour, the beach will be blank. She has predicted this end, tasted it on his menthol tongue, felt it in each whirl and callus, every knuckle's edge. When waves encroach, she snaps a photo with her phone. She will not stay to see her name sucked back with the sand. I have a couple pieces now that are from a collection of extremely short stories that will be coming out in May, and it's going to be called Outtakes. So this first one is called Lessons at the Derek Zoolander Center for Kids Who Can't Read Good. Todd teaches the ancient arts of posture and perseverance. Lectures start with the classic book on head exercise and escalate until each pupil can balance an entire encyclopedia set. You wondered what happened to all those funkin' waggles. Learning patience is a tough feat. First, Todd collects their pods, pads, and phones. He turns off the lights. Sitting in a circle, they listen as he intones his catalog of rejections. Those family reunions when his invitation was misplaced, the back seat at every cousin's wedding reception, the classmates who still don't look him in the face, each slight a penknife chip, a whittling of his heart. After weeks of practice, his students know how to stand up tall and smile with their teeth. And for those of you who don't know that, that's based on a movie called Zoolander. So that was characters from that. This next piece from Outtakes is called Dreaming of Boo Radley. I do not dream I am Calpurnia, a roasting pan heavy in mitted hands. I never dangle Dill's legs from the porch swing, scrunch Walter Cunningham's toes. Always I am Boo behind the door. My fingers twitch over pocket slits. My collar presses sweat rings into my neck. Through the crack, I watch the boy. His arm rests on the coverlet, his hair slick on his brow. I want to melt into the wallpaper, the beige space between the floral print. I could slip inside the walls, listen to the girls skip every other step, the boys sort baseball cards. After nightfall, as the oak branch scrapes the bedroom glass, I could hover, count their sleeping breaths. I would whisper of the gifts I hid for them, the treasures I can no longer keep. So I'm going to end with a brand new one. And this one is called Suspension. Time waits for no man, but once she waited for a woman. Time couldn't help herself. She watched the woman oil and season chicken with hearty shakes of paprika. How she placed the pan carefully on the center rack. Time lingered as the woman snapped beans, grain scent exploding at every finger's flick. Beneath the blade, potato skins unraveled in a single curl. The woman moved to a secret metronome. Time forgot everything, except radish roses chilling in an ice-filled glass and biscuit dollops on a baking tray. Every day for hours, the woman did not age. She stayed a bride, happy in her kitchen, until the door opened and the man on whom time would never wait came home. Thank you so much. I will be back on April 16th with more of the short fiction and new poetry, and I'll also have some flyers for another reading in the Marquette area too. So thank you again.
Well, I just got Janine's permission. She's going to have some of the short fiction coming out in May this year from ELJ Publications, and you'll be in this book with 2 other flash fiction writers. Is that right? Good. And so you'll have to talk about that too when you come to your reading. Yes. Thank you so much for reading. Thank you for Eddie for coming to this and showing your work as well. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. Thank goodness it's not 20 below. Thanks to Susan James and Bayliss Library. The refreshments tonight are provided by the Friends of the Bayliss Library. We also want to thank the Department of English and Dr. Gournier for financial support of the journal, which we really can't do without financial support. And also to all of our editors, again, all of our contributors, our audience, our readers, thank you so much for supporting this journal as well. We have copies of the journal for purchase. Janine will have her books on display in just a minute, so you can go by and look. And just to kind of promote this, next week Ellen Airgood is coming to Lake State to read. And she's from UNSC, is that?
Grand Marais.
Okay. I checked. She will be at Lake State next Tuesday, April 7th at 7 o'clock in the Crow's Nest. We should have it online pretty soon. We should have some kind of PR statement coming through. We usually have to do that a week before.
It's out and around. Yeah.
Okay. And there are posters all over. It should be posters all over. So it'll be coming through the news. It'll be coming through Lake State website pretty soon and through all like newspapers and things like that. So make sure you come. It's free. It's open to the public. I think we're having light refreshments and that sort of thing too. She's fantastic. If you have never read Ellen Airgood's work, she has a beautiful novel called South of Superior, which is just wonderful. You really feel like you're in the UP when you read it. So please come out and come meet her if you haven't met her before. She's just a really, really all around nice person. Okay, thank you guys so much, and please stick around.
I know what's, you know,
The big is, it's 10 days,
you know what's
Cowboys.
and you're laughing.
Yeah,
And I just love it. We're probably gonna screw it up at the Zoom.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe they'll do it.